Blog Talk Radio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and joining me is LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are your hosts. We're broadcasting live every Tuesday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern here on the blogtalkradio.com network, bringing you some of the best golfers, teacher professionals, and entrepreneurs helping to elevate women's golf. We're so glad you decided to join us this morning, so grab your coffee and let's get started. All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Women of Golf Show. I'm Ted Odorico, and right alongside is none other than Legends Tour player and LPGA professional Cindy Miller, and we are your hosts here on the Women of Golf Show. Good morning, Cindy.
Good morning, Ted. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Another great, beautiful, sunny Florida Tuesday morning. I don't know any other adjectives I could add there. It's another beautiful day. How are things up in Buffalo?
It's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
Did you hear me say that? Buffalo is 80 and sunny and no wind. Let's go play.
Wow. Yeah, that's unusual. That's an anomaly in Buffalo. All right.
It is.
We got a great show for you this morning. We got a great show this morning, everybody. We're going to be joined a little bit later on by our very special guest, Gail Graham. She's an LPGA teaching and club professional and also player on the Legends Tour. And I know things are a little quiet right now, but we'll talk to her a little bit about that as well. But first, we're going to enter the No BS. And we've got a great discussion for you this morning. But let me just remind everybody that the Women of Golf is brought to you by iGolf Sports Network and Golf Tips Magazine. Golf Sports is a live stream broadcast and media production company providing top quality programming designed to attract the golfing enthusiast. Golf Tips, the game's most in-depth instruction magazine, offering insightful reviews on the latest equipment, tips from top PGA and LPGA teaching professionals, all designed to help improve your game from tee to green. So go today at golftipsmag.com. All right, Cindy, I thought an interesting, since we're kind of having a late go, if you will, with the golf season, that it might be a good opportunity for, we were just talking off air, and I was asking you, saying that you were really, really busy every day with people coming up in lessons, and you're experiencing a lot of first-timers, if you will, to the game. So I thought this would be a great discussion on the No BS Zone. Is your first trip to the golf course what you need to know? And this is going to be part one of two parts because there's a lot of stuff to cover. And I thought what we would is, talk a little bit about some of the things that people need to do to get ready, some things that we can do to help them out to get ready for that first experience. So your first experience with any new activity can be intimidating. We know that for sure, and that goes whether it be a class, whether you salsa dance or something along that lines, or some other aerobic class, or just a regular routine. Sometimes if you've never done that before, you're going there to work with an instructor, and of course a round of golf. So for those of us who have been playing golf our whole lives, we can take the little nuances that go into the day. So here are a few things that we're going to talk about. And the first one, Cindy, really is, are you ready for the golf? And I'm going to put in a couple of sub-questions, and then we'll sort of pick them apart a little bit. Am I able to commit and make a swing without needing more than 20, 30 seconds to set up? So in other words, can I get there and get committed to the shot? Am I making contact consistently and not hitting it off the club hosel regularly or whiffing the ball altogether? Am I able to get the ball airborne with an assortment of clubs in my bag, or am I struggling with some? Am I reasonably comfortable pitching and chipping shots around the green? And have I practiced a variety of short game and bunker shots, including from various lies and slopes? So let's kind of go back up the list a little bit. And really the first one really talks about what sort of a pre-shot routine they might have. And obviously for a new person sending you to the game, they don't really want one. And this is where we can sort of help them. So what do we want to try? What do we want them to accomplish when they're going to get over the ball each and every time? What do we want them to do?
Okay, so here's my opinion. If you don't know what you're doing, because we did this with 12 kids the other day, and we've been giving them, they've had 2 one-hour group lessons, and during those lessons we taught them how to hit the ball 25 yards on purpose and how to hit it straight, airborne, clean, all that stuff. Then we took them over to the green, and then we said, okay, now you got to make this ball stop on the green from 25 yards away. And I don't know that people understand the feel and the finesse and the technique that needs to go into the thought process to be able to produce a golf shot. So I suggest that if you can find a short par 3 golf course, that's where you should start, not on a regulation golf course. And I would start hitting the ball 25 or 50 yards. So you may believe that it's a waste of money when you go to the short par 3 golf course to hit the ball from, let's say, 25 to 50 yards for 9 holes, but that's the best way for you to start so that you can understand what the game is. I believe. Otherwise, it's Lash LaRue, trying to kill the ball, can't find the ball, taking forever, holding up all the groups behind you. Everyone wants to shoot you. The ranger comes out and kicks you off the golf course. You never want to play golf again. So, in my opinion, you need to know, okay, what club will I hit from 25 or 50 yards away? How will I hit the shot? How do I aim the face? Because some people are taught to aim your shoulders. You can't aim your shoulders. You have to aim the face. So there's so many tiny little details that go into hitting a shot a certain distance on purpose. And I think if you understand that and you learn the game from the shortest part out, you'll enjoy it more. You'll score better. It'll cost you less in golf balls. That's my belief. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a really smart play, especially for somebody that's never played before, because, unless they've got some inborn natural talent, they're not likely going to hit the ball very well anyways. So the shorter the distance that you've set yourself up for to hit it, the easier it is that you're going to be able to pick it up. And in other words, you're not taking a full swing every time. You're just taking a part swing. But what that also does is that actually as you progress and become more confident and you're making better and cleaner contact even on those short shots, what happens is then when you start to progress and get into a fuller shot, you've already got the basics and the understanding down. And I agree with that. I think that very, very smart play to do that is to start at the short end of the game, if you will, from the green back. Too many times we see players that they're on the driving, or practice tee, and they're just trying to, work on these different shots and so forth. And especially as a beginner, just learn to and also too, Cindy, just to add a little bit, I think it adds confidence for the player as well. When they're able to get it on the green from 25 yards or even 50 yards out on a consistent basis, that gives them confidence and they feel good about it. And then they can go out there and they can putt out, which helps work on other parts of the short game. And if they don't quite get it on that first hit, then they've got a good opportunity to work on, their little chip shots and stuff around the green. So you're kind of getting the best of both worlds. So I agree with that as well. And to go to your point that you said, about aiming the club face, that's so crucial. I mean, I don't know how many people I see them and, they got the club across, and they're focusing on where their shoulders are pointing, and then they put the club down and the club face is pointing in a different direction. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, no, you need to do it the other way around. You need to get the club face lined up where you want it to go and then align your body according to that. And so there's a lot of things, really, and that helps you. And once you get that down pat, then what ultimately happens is then you're much quicker when you get over to the ball, and you're not taking a minute or 2 minutes every time getting over each shot, because now you've built some confidence up, but also you understand the steps that you need to do to get there. And that goes into, and that adds to really the next point, Cindy, and we don't really need to cover that, is, whether you're hitting it, or with the ball, as we sometimes put it, we want to be able to get the ball airborne, as you said, and you want to be able to do that consistently with all of your clubs, at some point. So I agree with that that's a great point. And as I said, we can work on some of the other short game. And just to close that little part out, if you answered no to the questions I mentioned earlier, then you definitely need more practice, and you definitely want to connect with somebody, like Cindy or myself or many professionals out there, and get some lessons. There's no shame in getting out there and working on your game with somebody that has a trained eye to, really know what to look out for. Agree?
Totally agree. You have to get some lessons so you know what you're doing. Again, most beginners, the ball tries to win, and when you're new to the game, you try to hit the ball, and when you've played the game for a long time, you try to control where the ball goes. But the ball is the enemy. So you need to know what you're doing with the club so that you can tell the ball what to do. And if you do that, everything changes and you can play way better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And then, and I know you've already touched on this, but the other is how to pick the right golf course to play as a beginner. There's a lot of great short par 3 courses out there, and I really agree with what you said. And if you don't have one, there are other options that you can choose. But I think that's a great way, and that's how I learned to play the game. I didn't go, my father, who I've mentioned before is the one me to play. He didn't take me out to the country club. He took me to the par 3 course, and he said, "This is where we're going to learn the game." And I actually enjoyed, to be honest, I enjoyed it at the time. I enjoyed it more than the country club because it was very, for me as a young boy, it was very intimidating with all these people sitting out on the deck and, right at the first tee, and they're overlooking the patio and they're watching everybody hit. So for me, the par 3, but that's a great way, I think, if you're going to get out and work on things. It's going to be much easier and less intimidating. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And it's more fun. I mean, you have immediate success, and you learn to understand. So I had these kids keep track of if they hit the green from 25 yards away and how many putts they had and what they scored. And they had to shoot 36 for 9 holes. And no offense, but some of them 5 and 6 putted. They had no idea what feel is. So now, clearly, as they watch everyone else play, they now know what they have to work on. We don't need to even discuss it. They can see where their weaknesses are, and then they'll be better this week when we go out to play. So that's what I believe.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's again, that's some great points to raise up because, again, you've got to. Golf is not an easy game. We know that as instructors and people in the industry. It is not an easy game. It's not like, just picking up a ball and bouncing it on the pavement or what have you. There is a skill to it, but you can learn it, and it's amazing how easy it can become if, number one, you have the right tools, your equipment, and particularly, that you get fitted properly. And you don't necessarily have to do that right from the get-go. I mean, obviously, we know it's a little bit more of an investment. But you have to have the right tools. But more importantly, you have to work with somebody that is trained to give you the other tools, if you will, the skill set, to be able to understand what you need to do out in the golf course. And then it's up to you. You have to go out and practice that. I mean, we can teach and tell you what you need to do, but if you're just going to say, well, that was a great lesson, and then you don't pick up the club until the next time, that's just not going to cut it. You're not going to improve, and unfortunately, that's what many people do. Another area, Cindy, it might seem very simple, but you'd be surprised at, especially for newbies to the game that have never played before, never had the experience of driving up, and that is something as simple as tee time. A lot of people, that first timers always ask that question. Well, how do I do that? What do I need to do? And who do I speak with? And some courses, depending on what their policies are, sometimes you don't even have to. They're not required. I would strongly suggest it because, they fill up pretty quick. But I've been in situations where, you've gone to the golf course and you especially as a single, and you can get plunked in with a twosome or a threesome. So you definitely don't want to be driving across the area and showing up and there's nothing available. Weekends obviously are typically busier. But there are a couple of ways to do this. If you're confident you've done it, Cindy, you can pick up the phone and you can call the pro shop. Or if you know a pro that works at, of course, somebody like yourself, they can kind of walk you through the process. They can get you in touch with, the right people that you need to and kind of point you in that direction. And there's also, online booking now has made it so easy. Golf Now and some other great apps out there that you can get to book those tee times as well. But that's, again, you'd be surprised at how many people something is what would seem simple as that, they haven't got a clue what the process is. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And it even goes beyond that, and we're going to talk about here well, is once you've booked your tee time, and maybe it's for this upcoming weekend as an example, and now you're ready to check in. This is the one, and I guarantee it's, and you've seen it many, many times over your career. But you've booked your tee time for, let's say, 1:20 p.m. And what do? You pull into the parking lot at 1:20 p.m. Well, you're late. Cut and dry, you're late. You need to be, they can't offer, most golf courses can't offer grace periods like restaurant reservations. Tee times are typically 6 to 10 minutes apart. When the group ahead of you is teed off, the starter expects you ready to jump in on the tee and be prepared. So arriving, at the golf course for a tee time 15 minutes early is about as close as you can cut it. I recommend at least 30 minutes before to give you some time to warm up. What do you normally recommend for your students when you're talking to them?
45 minutes to an hour. Just
Yep.
so you're not rushing.
Yeah.
You need to be at your tee time 10 minutes before you tee off.
Yeah, I would agree. And you'd be surprised how fast that 45 minutes to an hour zips by. Think of that and say, well, that's an hour. I mean, I don't need to be there that early. Yes, you do, because by the time you get your stuff loaded up, by the time you drop your bag off or get it, checked in, so on and so forth, and then want to have a few minutes to get out there and maybe on the practice green and do some putting and chipping and maybe even hit a few shots out on the range if they've got a good close practice facility just to warm up. And you'd be surprised in order to get back and be ready, 10 minutes before your time. Because the other thing, too, which people, Cindy, don't really factor in is sometimes if there's a no-show or a group is playing, groups are playing ahead a little faster than expected, just because your tee time's 1:20 doesn't mean that the starter's not going to come and say, hey, okay, if you're ready to go, we've got an opening here. It might be 10 minutes early. And, so you want to be in that position, to be ready and to be prepared. Because if you're showing up, right, this, and talk about this a little bit. Yeah, go ahead. Mm-hmm.
If you get there early and you've been working all day, you don't want to speed in the parking lot, whip out of the car, and run to the first tee. Because the first 3 holes are going to be terrible. So you kind of want to go, okay, I'm out on the golf course, take a deep breath. I want to feel my swing. You have to shift states. You know what I mean? You have to feel, what am I doing here? You have to pay attention to the task at hand. So in my opinion, you need to definitely take a chill pill.
Yeah, and exactly. Especially if you're booking a later tee time in the day and day at the office or at your place of business, and now suddenly you've got an opportunity to get even 9 in, maybe towards the end of the day. The last thing you want to do is be, like you said, rushing from the car and running to the first tee. First off, you're going to be a little winded. Secondly, you're not going to be prepared. And then you're rushing the process. Now all of a sudden your tempo and your timing is now out of whack. Instead of, approaching it, maybe you're kind of like a Freddie Couples where you're kind of a slow and easy type personality. Now all of a sudden you're like a Nick Price. You're fidgety. And I'm just throwing those players an example. I'm not saying that as a criticism, but you know what I'm talking about, right, Cindy? I mean, you get there and now suddenly your body rhythm is actually out of sync, and that's crucial because if you're going at a quicker pace than you normally would, then going back to what we talked about earlier, you're not going to be as prepared, number one, but also you're going to be in a position where you're not going to go through your routine. And I've seen, I don't know how many times I've seen that where people show up late for their tee time, and instead of, taking a proper practice swing and really thinking about what they're going to do, more often what they'll do is they'll just grab a ball and a tee in the club and they'll run up to the tee and they'll place it, and they might take a real quick pass swing, and boom, the next thing you know, they've just sliced it into the woods, or they've duck hooked it into the pond, or what have you. You've seen that, I'm sure, many, many times, right?
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I mean,
yes. So again, you just have to know, why am I here? What do I want to do? How am I going to get it? And just, if you're going to go play golf, block off the time so that you have plenty of time to go do what you're supposed to do.
I couldn't agree more. And, it's really not as difficult as people, make it out to be. The other thing, too, is, what to wear to the golf course. Dress codes, Cindy, maybe you can touch a little bit about that for women. I mean, you've seen lots of different scenarios where women will show up to the golf course, and, for the most part, they look, pretty nice, but I'm sure there's been a few along the ways that are maybe inappropriate. It's not the right attire for the golf course for a number of reasons. One, maybe it's even inappropriate in some cases, or it's not going to be comfortable because you have to have movement. You have to be, you can't have things that are so tight and restricted that you're not going to be able to complete the golf swing. And, there are other factors involved. Maybe you can just touch a little bit about what you recommend to your players, male or female, really, what they wear to the golf course. What's sort of acceptable and what's not.
What I would do is I would go to the website of the course you're going to be playing. And or let's say you're invited to a corporate outing, I would ask the person that's running the event, what's the dress code for the country club? What's the dress code for the day? Are we going to change clothes for dinner? Are we going to, do you bring a change of clothes and take a shower in the locker rooms? What's the itinerary for the day, and what does it look like? Now, if you're not playing in a corporate outing and you're just going to a course for the first time ever, and they don't have a dress code on their website, I would call the pro shop, because you just need to be aware that you may have to wear a collared shirt. I played at Wingfoot, way back when, and I had shorts on. Shorts were not allowed. I had to go in the pro shop and buy a skirt. Now,
right.
I was like, what? Well, don't argue. This is their rule.
Right.
You got to do what they tell you.
Right. And they do that, obviously, is they want to, sort of a continuity. And here's a sort of a rule of thumb that I always try to do. A lot of your municipal courses or your pitch and putts sometimes typically aren't really as enforcing much in terms of dress code, especially these days. But as a news player, again, you want to recommend to them that they sort of blend in with proper golf attire. So for men, that means wearing a collared shirt. I know that some courses are a little more lax on that now, tucked in, to a pair of slacks or shorts. And again, you want to, I've even seen some men that walk out there with shorts that are so tight they can hardly, bend over to pick the ball up. And, they might think it's looks cool and whatnot, but the truth of the matter is it's not very, it's not very conducive to the, the task of the day. And the same thing on women's dress code. Reach out, to the pro shop if you're unsure of what what's acceptable. There's some courses now obviously do allow shorts. The skirts are okay. Skirts, which is sort of a combination, are good. But the other thing is, even with women's fashion particularly, you've got to be really particular, because there are some situations, and I think we all understand what I'm talking about, where it is extremely inappropriate. The shorts or the skirts and whatnot are extremely short, and it's unfortunately it's not something you want to wear, and I think people understand. I don't even need to get into it, but you're right. If you're unsure, visit the website of the course that you're playing. Again, more of your country clubs or even some of your resorts may have a little bit further restrictions, so you want to check with them ahead of time, especially if you're planning on a trip. You want to know what's male or female, on their course. Again, some of your municipal or some of your lesser well-known facilities may be a little bit more lax. In fact, in some cases, especially up north, even denim now is becoming an acceptable. They're trying to fit in. I've seen people with not flip-flops, but kind of those open-toed flops or whatever you want to call them. So I mean, there's even some that are doing that. They're trying to be more inclusive, but it doesn't hurt to check into that. The other thing is what and what not to bring. Obviously, if you're somebody that owns some clubs or has access to clubs, you're allowed 14 in the bag, but that doesn't mean you have to bring 14 as a new player. You might want to bring just half the bag, 7 clubs, or in some cases you might even just want to bring a wood, maybe a middle iron, a wedge, and a putter. But you can also rent them as well. What are some things, Cindy, that you can think of? I've got a few here that we can talk about, but what not to bring, sort of what you leave at home. What are some things that you don't need to bring to play golf?
A 6-pack of beer.
That was the first one. That was the first one.
Well, again, people might think I'm going camping, and there's signs at courses. I mean, especially if you're going to a private club. Oh my goodness, don't do that. Wear sneakers. If you don't have golf shoes, wear sneakers, and don't bring a cooler of stuff. You could put some snacks in your golf bag, but yeah. You know what they should do? They should go to Amazon and buy Cindy Miller's Golf 101 book. It tells them all this stuff.
Right.
So
exactly, and that's a great thing. You're right, and alcohol is one. I mean, there are some courses, not very many, but some courses where they may, permit you to bring your own stuff and like that, but most of them won't, because obviously they're trying to get you to purchase something from the cart girl or what have you. So that's one. The other thing, real quick, and we're getting close to our time, but a lot of new golfers, when they've been out at the practice range, think, well, I'm going to save a little money here. I'm going to stuff the bag full of range balls. Not a good idea. More than likely, if you get caught, you're going to get either, if you're lucky, you'll get scolded a little bit. More than likely, you'll get kicked off the property. They perceive that as stealing, and most of them, unless they really know you real well, and I mean, people say, well, it's just range balls, but you know what? That costs money. It costs the course money, and they got to keep replacing. And I know there's people that do it, because I've seen people, pulling them out when they have to hit over a pond or something, and they don't want to, lose a $4 Titleist Pro V1. So they pull out an old range ball they've got kicking around, and I always look to see where they've stolen from. So those are things to consider as well. And even though, believe it or not, I never thought I would say this, but some places I'm sure do. Dogs are typically not allowed at public courses, though that's starting to something that some places are trying to accommodate, much like hotels and so forth. But leave the pets at home. You'll see them after your round. Go there with an open mind and an open spirit. Seek out your local golf professional and connect with them. Have a conversation with them and say, look, I'm interested in learning this game. What are some things that I need to do? And Cindy, you can let them know. You've got a great book, Golf 101. How can they get their hands on it? Because it really has some of what we talked about and so much more. If you're really wanting to learn this game, it's a great read. Where can they go and get their hot little hands on a copy?
You know what? They should just email me, Cindy@CindyMillerGolf.com. Cindy@CindyMillerGolf.com. And they can get it cheaper from me.
Perfect. There you go. Look at that. You even save a little bit of money. All right. Well, that was the No BS Zone. We're glad that you tuned in for that. And next week we'll talk about some other things as well. So for those of you that are making your first trip this year to the golf course, some things that you might need to know before you head out there. So we talked about a little bit. We'll talk about some more in part 2 next week. All right. We're joined by our very special guest, Cindy, Gail Graham. She is an LPGA teaching and club professional, and also has played on the Legends Tour. Whether she is practicing, playing, watching, teaching, or coaching, Gail sees the game as an opportunity for learning, personal growth, and most importantly, fun. A three-letter word that everybody wants to get out and do these days is have some fun. Her 44-plus years of playing golf and 30-plus years as a professional culminated in her being inducted into the Canadian Golf Hall of Fame in 2018. She's a two-time LPGA Tour winner with over 1.2 million in career earnings, and also has a victory on the Symetra, or formerly Futures Tour, and at the Canadian PGA Women's Championship. She is also a member of the British Columbia and Manitoba Golf Halls of Fame. She was president of the LPGA Tour in 2001 and 2002, the first non-American, and she was the president of the LPGA Tournament Owners Association also for 7 years. So, Cindy, let's welcome our very special guest back to the show. She was on a few years ago, Gail Graham.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Greetings from hot and steamy Naples, Florida.
I bet it's really hot there.
It's actually, today is the humidity's down. We had a nice little storm last night that blew out the humidity, and up until probably 2:00 this afternoon, it'll be hot, but actually quite pleasant. There's a nice little breeze blowing. It's about 80 degrees right now. It's not too bad.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Why are you staying in Florida? Are you going to Canada? What are you doing?
Well, I interestingly, today happens to be my mom's 90th birthday, so I'm totally bummed I'm not in Kelowna, British Columbia for that. But with the borders being closed, I can cross into Canada, but I would not likely be able to come back into the U.S. because what I do is not necessarily considered essential. So that's why I'm here, and I'm teaching every other week down here in the mornings. And having a good time doing that. Getting a little, kayaking and a little home improvement happening, but still keeping myself sharp with teaching. I'm actually just standing watching a student that I have after we're done, getting all warmed up.
Well, good. And bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, same thing here.
Yeah.
We can't go over the border either unless you have family, close family.
Yeah. Well, and it's been and
I think they're going to raise it.
Learn.
Yeah, when are they going to change it? July?
It was end of July. They pushed it till the end of July now, but we'll see. I'll tell you that I have 2 emergency room doctors in my family, and they both work in Vancouver, and they're figuring it's going to be before the end of the year before BC gets back to normal. Now, I will tell you, BC has had less than maybe 2,000 cases in all of British Columbia. So they've done a phenomenal job of managing to control everything. And golf is open. They're just not allowing travel in and out. So it's a new world we're living in. Unfortunately, it's going to keep people from moving around and traveling too much up there. But they've done a great job of containing it in Canada. Yeah.
How sad.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a little crazy. It's interesting though. I've had to be quite resourceful in teaching. I know, Cindy, you're much like me, or I'm much like you. Is we're hands-on, and so teaching has become a step back and don't touch your students type of thing now. So
right, it's so weird. I'm like, all right, watch me.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, I'm using video a lot more that I'm taking of them during and then sending it to them afterwards to reinforce what we've talked about, because I can't get in there and move their hands around, and so I'm showing them what their before and afters are looking like, and I've got I imported from Canada something called a cap shield that is a acrylic shield that clips onto my baseball cap or my golf hat, so that it covers right down below my chin and around the sides of my face, so I can see them and they can see me, and I don't have to wear a mask when it's so hot. It does fog up every now and then while I'm out here, but it at least allows me to slip into close to 6 feet and then back out again without absolutely dying and my face breaking out like a teenage kid with acne. So It's a bit of a challenge, and what I've found, though, is students are very receptive to the fact that at least they're out there, they're learning stuff, and we do have to stay away. Golf is great that way. It's a solitary sport, so we can go ahead and step back away and still be effective in what we're doing.
Well, I'm impressed, darling, as usual. Ted, go ahead.
So Gail, let me ask
Hi, Ted.
you. Obviously, hi. How are you doing, Gail? Yes. Yeah. I was sitting patiently, letting you guys get caught up and say your hellos and whatnot, but I'm sitting in the wings here, just waiting. So let me ask you something, Gail. You talked a little bit about teaching and some of the adjustments that you've had to make, and also again, being able to play out in the golf course for many of our students. Is really, we're very blessed to have the sport that we do, because you're right, unlike so many others where you can't get out there right now, golf has been one of the few that you can, and so that's been a bonus to everybody that's in the industry. What do you do with your golf business typically? When we were just talking in a previous segment about first-time golfers, people that have never played before, the very first time to the golf course. How do you, what process do you walk them through when they're, when you're first greeting them, they've reached out to you and they say, hey, you know what, I've never played this game and I really don't know what to do. Where do I start? How do I begin? What's the process? Walk us through that conversation that you have with your students.
I have a lot of that. I am at a club, Esplanade, Naples, that is a predominantly retired people, newly retired people. And so they've bought this beautiful home in this lovely community, and there's a golf course available to them. So they're like, I think I'm going to play. I've never played before. So I get a lot of that. The first thing that I like to do is just really interview them and find out what other sports they've played. And it helps me to understand not only how they relate to sport, but what their thoughts and their feelings and their emotions are with other sports. Some sports relate beautifully to golf and others not so much. So if someone's active in sports, then you can talk to them about, an athletic setup and being on the balls of their feet, as opposed to standing like a statue and freaking out because there's a ball there and swinging through the ball to the target. And but just beginning just to find out, where are they? Where is are they a true beginner, or they haven't done it? And athletically, of course, at 50 and older, you also have to figure out, okay, are there new parts? Do we have new knees and hips? What do we have to work with here in terms of the body? And then it becomes the process of just trying to have them swing as naturally as possible. So the key, and I really stress the key being your setup. So going through a process to make sure you set up the same each time, no matter what club you have in your bag. Stressing that the two things that are going to change are your ball position and your distance from the ball, but everything else stays pretty much the same. So when they understand that, they're not trying to maneuver themselves into an awkward position to hit a driver as opposed to hitting a pitching wedge. And I start, basics with posture, the width of their stance, how they're setting up. I use Cindy Miller's for posture. You want to puke just a little bit, don't get it on your shoes. Tip over just far enough, and which gets a big laugh out of everybody all the time. But just trying to get beginners to understand that it's a game where you play. It's not about standing here and being perfect all the time. I actually like to get them to get out on the golf course fairly early. Once they understand how they're going to hold on to the golf club and how they're going to stand, let's get out there and let's just go play it before we start getting technical. Then I can also see how they're going to naturally swing the golf club. Although as soon as you put a ball there, when you look at someone taking a practice swing and how beautiful practice swings are, as soon as you put a ball there, it changes everything. So I like to do that to get them to understand that and feel that, and then start to work with them on, this needs to improve. We need to make sure you do this the same every time. And a lot of it is very remedial with new students. I have a few that refuse to practice, so we have an understanding that it's going to be basics every time. But then I have this lady who's warming up today. She practices every day, and she works on it. Like, it's not just to go out there and whack golf balls, although I just saw her whack 2 shots that I think when she figures out that I'm sitting back here, she's going to hurry up and fix it. But, you know, every shot has a purpose, and so you want to have intention with every swing that you make. And there are so many aspects that beginners get overwhelmed with. So as simple as you can make it, the better it is. So I want them to be comfortable in their setup, but it to be something that is repeatable. And then I want them to swing as naturally as possible. And then we can work on that. We can work on the club path. We can work on, you know, the angle of attack. All the things that as professionals and as a player that I know, but I try to forget about. I just try to make it happen. But there's a, you know, too much is too much. I also, with beginners, I think you have to have the conversations with them about how to do things, how to drive a golf cart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what do you do when you get to the golf course? You know, where do you park? Where do you put your clubs? You know, how many clubs what do you bring with you when you're hitting a shot? All that kind of thing. So I actually love teaching beginners, even more so than very seasoned players, because they're such sponges and they get so excited about, oh, I never knew that. That's going to make it so much easier. And it could be something as mundane as the tees that are on the golf cart have little lines on them. And when you're hitting your driver, only stick it into the first line. When you're hitting, you know, a 7-iron on a par 3, stick it into the second line. Well, I never knew that. That's great. You know, it's little things like that they didn't even have the opportunity to think of. So.
Right, and and you're right. There's so many things, and I agree with you. I think sometimes working with newer students is actually in some ways for a professional more enjoyable, because it's almost like you've got a lump of clay that's just been put down, and you can kind of mold it in a way, you know what I mean? Like you can kind of work and mold it, and if something's not going right, you can shift directions a little bit and find something that does work better for them. And you're exactly right. And they're more apt to want to learn. You know, like a sponge, it'll absorb pretty much everything that you tell them. Whereas, you know, when you're working with somebody that's been around for a little while and they've, you know, maybe had 2 or 3 instructors over their lifetime, and well, you know, or they've watched every YouTube video that you can imagine, you know, it's more about, well, I saw this on YouTube last week, and this guy said you shouldn't be doing this, and you spend more of your time sort of defending positions than actually working on the things that is going to help their game. Do you, Gail, just to follow up from some of what you just, exactly, and Cindy, I know, would agree with that as well. I mean, that's sometimes can be a little bit annoying, but you know, it is part of the business. Just in sort of to follow up on some of what you talked about for newcomers to the game, do you also, in addition to showing them, you know, things about the cart and so on and so forth, do you kind of walk them through the facility a little bit and help them to understand that, you know, when it comes time to booking tee times or it comes time to doing certain things, kind of show them the lay of the land? Because a lot of people, you're right, they pull up, they have not a clue on what to do. They pull up in the parking lot and they're like, you know, they're looking around and say, well, where do I go and what do I do? Do you kind of walk them through that process a little bit? I know some of the stuff you said, but what about actually taking them in?
Yeah. Fortunately or unfortunately for me, I'm at a club where they have some people that do member services like that. They do a little tour, a little 101 type of thing.
Right.
I find the people that are usually doing that, though, are not quite as versed and as experienced in the game. I always try to, you know, I always tell them there's no dumb questions. And just because I've been doing it a long time doesn't mean I might skip something over because it just didn't occur to me that you don't know that. So ask anything.
Right.
And so I do get lots of questions about, you know, even so far as to what do I do when I come to play and I have to ride with somebody that I don't like? You know, it's how do you manage that? And that's part of getting deeper into the game, where you're managing your human skills and you're managing you on the golf course and not allowing outside distractions to bother you on the golf course. And so that gets, you know, I just spent 18 weeks doing some coursework with Vision 54 on just that. And it's something that I learned stuff during those 18 weeks that I thought, yeah, you know, that happens, and I'm bad at managing that. So it's helped me help my students sort of enjoy the game more. And when they realize that it's not a technical thing every time they swing the golf club, sometimes it's just you're holding on to the club too tight. That's tension, and that's manageable. But I get all the time. I saw this on YouTube. My favorite is, well, how come that Dustin Johnson can swing like this and hold the club like this and do this, and when I try it, it doesn't work. Well, yeah, because it's you, and
right.
I follow bioswing dynamics, so I like to teach by how your swing is going to be based on how your body makeup is, and so that allows me to say to them, listen, you're never going to get your hands as high in the backswing as Dustin Johnson is. It's not impossible, but it's physically a disadvantage for you to try to do that. But because your arms are short, you're going to swing a little flatter. So how about we just feel like, try to do this and try to feel like the club's just sort of sitting on your shoulder at the top of your backswing. And they go, oh, it feels so much better. Exactly. We don't want to try to direct the club in a way that's unnatural. So it is a challenge. I will absolutely admit it when it's YouTube videos and books and articles and I write, so I know. I try to write in a way that is easy to understand and not too technical, so they don't know I need to be in this position in the backswing. My hands need to be doing this, and no, let's not worry too much about that. So it's always a challenge, and I find myself watching some of those things and going, oh, no.
Right. Well,
now,
and let me just add, Gail, let me just add a little disclaimer in there too about the videos and that. There are a lot of great instructors.
Absolutely.
Some here that put their work up there. So I don't want to take away from those qualified people that are just simply putting it up there for people to see. That's not what I'm talking about. And I know you know that. I'm talking about the Mr. Fix-It and they're going to show you the easiest way to accomplish it. They really have no skill set whatsoever. It's something that they tried, and that's what I'm talking about. I know you knew that, but I just don't want the listeners to misunderstand. There's some good content.
There is some great content out there. If you have an instructor, if you have a Cindy Miller who has great videos, follow her. Don't jump around to 18 different people. And that's where people get confused, is they read every article and they watch every show on the Golf Channel and they try every little thing. That's where if you watch that, go to your instructor and ask them, okay, I saw this on the Golf Channel. Does this apply to me? Because a lot of times there's just you've had 2 knee replacements and a hip replacement. You can't make that swing move. So and they know that in their head. It's just they're just trying. Everyone wants that little secret, right, to get a little better.
Right.
And I do too. I'm still searching for it.
We all do. We're all guilty of that.
There's some great content out there for sure. Yeah.
I agree. Cindy, go ahead. I know you've got some more things you wanted to ask Gail.
What do you love most about teaching?
Oh, Cindy, I've been very fortunate. I got to play as a career, to be on the outside of the ropes to help create opportunities for other people to play. And then I came back and now I'm standing on the lesson tee every day. And this is the part of my golfing career that I absolutely am loving the most. And I think the thing that I love the most about it is seeing somebody get that feel that I know that I get when I hit a great shot. The club swings effortlessly and the ball clicks off the club face and it soars in the air and it goes where you want to. And they get so excited, it makes me excited. So, it's kind of that I get a kick out of people really kind of getting what it is that they're trying to accomplish and being proud that they did it. We're so hard on ourselves in the game, and when someone hits the shot that they want to, it's like, okay, so now let's find out how we can make that repeat, and let's see if we can maybe do it instead of 1 time out of 10, let's do it 5 times out of 10, and let's try to get it to 10 times out of 10. So that's the good part.
Awesome.
Very interesting. Cindy, have you got another question you want to ask?
I don't. You can go.
All right. Okay. Well, listen. I've got so many questions that we could be here for the next 6 hours. Unfortunately, we don't have that much time. But Gail, let me ask you something. In our current environment with sort of the stopping of tournaments for several months here as we were dealing with this pandemic, how do you see players? I mean, many of them are doing things, have done things at home, practicing and stuff, but it's still not the same as tournament play. You know yourself from being a professional golfer, it's not the same thing as going out there and grinding it out against your competitors. As we start to unravel and open up again, in some cases on the tours, what would you suggest if you were coaching a player right now? What would be the thing that you would say to them to be able to get back and refocus? Because it's not an easy, sort of dormant for a few months, and you can practice all you want, but again, you know what I'm talking about. It's not the same. What's the conversation you're going to have with a student that's going back out on tour?
Well, I think they need to. They're all so excited to get back out there, and I'm watching players on Twitter and on Facebook and Instagram chomping at the bit to get back out there, and you ought to hit the ground running when you get out there, which means you need to be prepared. So you've had a lot of time to prepare and look at how you are preparing for that, but you haven't had time to test that preparation. So leading up to, you've got, I think the LPGA is middle of July. So they've got time to try to play in some events that are happening so there's some mini tour events that are happening, or just go out and play with fellow professionals and put something on the line for it. And make it as close to that situation as you possibly can make it to being on the golf course with, the score having to count. I think you saw it a little bit last week at Colonial with the men. Lots of the great names on the leaderboard, but you started to see people fold near the end of the tournament. Rory was gung ho. He shot 63 the one day, and then where did he finish? And that golf is like that, but they haven't been able to test themselves enough. So I think part of it really, there needs to be a conversation about patience and understanding that this is not unlike any other time of the season, except that you haven't been playing on a consistent basis. So you're coming out after, it's like coming out after a 2 or 3 week, mid-season, you typically take 2 weeks off in the middle of the season. You come out and you will be rusty. And that's okay. Right. Everybody else will be too. So, but you need to be patient with yourself and not try to force things. Hopefully, during this time, they've really worked hard on the ball striking and the short game and the things, the technical skills that will get them to the top of the leaderboard. The hard part is the mental part of it and the staying focused. So, there's the LPGA has a relationship with Headspace, which is a meditation app. And I think that's something that you're going to see more players talk about in the future, is how meditation and really being focused is going to give them the opportunity to stay calm and focused in situations where they maybe haven't been in on a regular basis for a long time. So, I think that's a kind of a something that I would tell someone is to go and seek that out and test it out and see if you can sit for a minute without, focused on one thing. Because we're so, and now too, we're all over our phones, we're all over our iPads, we're all over computers and television. Right. We're watching, we're so much stimulation, and on the golf course there's none of that. So step away from that before you head out there and try to find that quiet place in your head that just allows you to be you and to play like you.
Yeah, that's some great advice. And I think the other thing that's going to be an adjustment for a lot of the tour players is, not having to look over your shoulder every 2 seconds to see whether a fan is going to be, stepping on a twig and snapping a twig in the middle of your backswing. And, so that's going to be an adjustment for a lot of players as well, especially on the bigger tours, the LPGA and the PGA, because they're used to having crowds. And now all of a sudden it's just the birds chirping and, a cricket here or a bullfrog or something. That's going to be an adjustment mentally as well. But let me just circle back for a second. I want to ask you something. We had a few tournaments obviously early in the season, and as well as anybody that when you come fresh off a win, especially early in the season, you've won the first tournament of the year, or second or what have you, and you kind of have that momentum, you kind of have that, and then all of a sudden it comes to a screeching halt. That also is difficult, is it not? I mean, that's really where your mental part of your game has to take place, because you've got the physical game, you've won the tournament, but now all of a sudden you can't play for the next several months. Is that a similar conversation, do you think, or is that going to shift even more so because they no longer have that momentum to feed off of?
I think so. I think they may feel like they've lost their advantage. They had an advantage by being at the top of their game and mentally and physically, and then all of a sudden that advantage was stripped away from them. So it really is it's a fresh start. So for those players that weren't playing great, it's a huge opportunity to improve what you've been doing. For those at the top, it's maintaining what you've been doing. And they got there, so they know how they got there, as long as they've, I think, given themselves time away, but then being able to come back and be focused in that same way. I do think you're right. It's a total adjustment to go out there and not have anybody out there to, when you hit a great shot, to cheer you on or I think the photographers need to be really careful because you'll really be able to hear those clicks of the camera more. But it's a new reality that they all should be, trying to adjust to. I think trying to stay focused is going to be one of the hard parts with nobody out there, because when there's people watching, there's that level of, well, I got to pull this shot off because people are watching. You don't consciously think that, but it's there. It's in your mind, and then
it's a different
there's
pressure.
Nobody there. Yeah. So I think staying focused. It's more like you're out there. It's going to be more like you're out there playing with your friends, which is going to be hard to stay focused in that time. And maybe that's what we saw last week at Colonial. Xander Schauffele missed that putt on 17. And it was short. It was easy. It was a 3-footer. That's like no-brainer to him. And he lifted out and ended up, one shot out of the playoff. So it's that staying focused part, and that comes with practice, and it comes with experience. And by experience, I mean doing it over and over again. So it's tough. I mean, those people. Hopefully, they're not resenting the fact that, it's not like they just shut down because they shut down. Everybody had to do it. We had to do it for a reason. So everybody's in the same boat. So, it's going to be interesting to see who comes out right away out of the gate and is up there at the top a lot. I think you're going to see a lot of the same players as we've seen in the past. But I think you're going to see some newbies come out too because they've had extra time to really work on things.
And I'm going to tell you that you're going to watch Christina Kim. Because I think she's been on a mission. She's lost 60 pounds. Yeah, you better look out because she's on a mission. Again, all of a sudden you see these people show up, but you haven't seen the year of work they put in behind the scenes.
Right, and with the last thing I saw with Christina, she's been working on shot making. So she's got one shot that's still eluding her a little bit. And she's been working her tail off to get that shot. And I can't remember what it was. It was a high draw, I think, or a high fade. It was one of those two. But she wants to be able to hit that shot on command when she needs to. And I think she said it. I love a straight ball, but sometimes you can't hit the straight ball. But she has, and then that's a player that I think you're going to see all of a sudden sort of come from nowhere, even though she's been around for a long time. But she's been busting her rear end to really, be in a position, and she's taken advantage of the time.
She sure has.
Right, exactly. Yeah, we had her on a few weeks ago, right, Cindy, and she was really excited, and plus she's playing those swanky new PXG clubs that she's really excited about. She's really enjoying. So, so she's not only got the physical part that she's got under check, if you will, and now she's got a brand new equipment line that she's excited to get out and use. Awesome. It's going to be exciting to see. I'm getting tired of watching Netflix movies and Hulu and all of this stuff. I'm looking forward to some golf, and I'm tired. I love watching these old tournaments, but you can only watch so many reruns of the 1975 whatever Masters and so on and so forth. So it's time for some fresh stuff coming out. But
Ted, I'll take the 1986 Masters. I'll watch that one over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, that one's a classic for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Gail, listen, we love having you on the show, and unfortunately we've got to wrap up, and we'll have you on again maybe a little bit later on the season, Cindy. Don't you think? When the season, assuming it opens up on time, from what they're predicting now, but we'll have you come back and we'll continue the conversation. It's 30 minutes wasn't enough this time around, but that's all we could spare. But Gail, thank you very much as always. It's a pleasure, and it's nice to have a fellow Canadian on the show, so I don't feel outnumbered all the time.
I love it. Well, you guys, I enjoyed it, and you guys stay safe and healthy, and let's keep all the golfers out there safe and healthy as well.
Absolutely.
You as well.
Thanks, honey. Have a great day.
You too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, that was our very special guest this morning, Gail Graham, LPGA teaching club professional, and member on the Legends Tour as well. Enjoying her time down in Naples, Florida. I could hear, I don't know if you did or not, Cindy, but I could actually hear the birds chirping in the background while she was standing on the lesson tee with her students. So
kind of nice.
But yeah, it was actually kind of nice. So, all right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the show. We're going to be back next week, again, with another great guest and part 2 of your first trip to the golf courses, what you need to know in an OPS zone. So make sure you join us. On behalf of Cindy Miller, I'm Ted Odorico. Thank you very much for tuning in this morning to the Women of Golf Show. We'll see you next week. God bless everybody. Thanks, Cindy.
Thanks, Ted. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening this morning to the Women of Golf Show. Tune in live each week by visiting blogtalkradio.com/Women of Golf or on any of these social media platforms: iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn, Castbox, TalkStream Live, and of course Spotify. If you can't join us live, check out our on-demand section for previously aired broadcasts. To get updates for future shows and upcoming guests, you can follow us on Facebook at Women of Golf. You can also follow me on Twitter at Ted and Buck CEO and Cindy at Cindy Miller Golf. Please remember to join us next week on the Women of Golf Show. See you next time. This has been a production of the iGolf Sports Network.